Okay, everyone, this is the video from Monday, April the 20th. This is RPNE, and today I'm coming to you from another one of my favorite places. This is a rock garden in the middle of the Haw River, and here I am in the middle of the river sitting on 600 million year old rocks and watching the river go by. Sorry, the background noise is a little bit loud today. Hopefully that's not a distraction. I have just a handful of points I want to make. I want to go really quickly. First of all, you've made it to Dead Week, the final week of the semester. Congratulations. That's a big deal, especially in a semester like this one has been. You've made it 25 miles through the marathon. You have another mile and some change to go, so the end is practically in sight. The other good news is that you've already, or should have already, written a complete draft of your autoethnography. That puts you in a pretty good place where you'll have 4 or 5 days to be able to focus just on revisions, or really just to find time to do your revisions. That's a good spot to be in. You've created everything. Now all you have to do is fix it up. So the things that we're doing this week are focused on that. The first one is the revision Q&A, which takes place on Monday, April the 20th. And that is, you've seen the email about that by now. You'll be making 3 posts to the forum. The first one should be done Monday morning, and there you will be posting a comment or question. It can be about your paper, it can be about the autoethnography in general, it could be about writing in general. I don't know what. I don't know what you're wondering about or what you're concerned about. But the idea is to post a comment or a concern or a question that about something that is going to be able to help you to make your paper better. Put that out to the class. And then then we get to the other post you'll be doing. You'll be responding to 2 other people's posts. We have a lot of smart people in our class. There's a lot of collective experience about writing, a lot of know-how, a lot of intuition about it. So the first line will be you guys answering each other's questions. Therefore, every person needs to respond to 2 other people's posts. You'll make that first post by Monday morning. The 2 responses need to be done by Monday evening at 11:55. And that will count as your attendance for Monday, April the 20th. To the extent that there's questions that go unanswered, or if the questions need to be clarified, or the responses need to be clarified or elaborated on, whatever, I'll also chime in. But I really feel certain that you guys will give better answers than I'll give. The next thing for you is Tuesday the 21st. This is just a revision day for us. There's nothing to do, nothing to turn in, though I have set aside this day as your day to complete the online course evaluation. There is a link to this on the Moodle page. I hope that you will take a few minutes to do this. It's pretty important in terms of giving me and my boss, who is the head of the first year writing program, and her boss, who is the head of the English department, some information about your experience in English 101 and of course your experiences with this online version of English 101 that we're dealing with now. For Tuesday, please do the evaluation. If there's things that you liked about the class, if there's things that went well for you, by all means, write about that. If there's some things that you didn't like, things that you wish could have gone better or been done differently, if you have some suggestions about things, well, please include that stuff too. I'm always eager to know your feedback, whether it's positive or negative. And of course, my boss wants to read that stuff as well. So please take a few minutes and complete that evaluation. I also will have Zoom office hours on Tuesday afternoon. If you want to check in about your work on this project, you don't have to come for the whole 2 hours. I'll be on there for 2 hours, and you can just pop in and say what you need to or ask what you need to. We'll talk it through, and then you can pop right back out. I'll also be doing that on Thursday afternoon. The last thing in terms of this week is, of course, Thursday, which is the last day of our class, the last day of the semester. By 11:55 that evening, you should upload the final draft of your autoethnography to the Moodle page. You'll also see, there'll be another video on Thursday. You'll also find on Thursday the assignment for the final exam essay. And as I've said before, you really don't need to stress about that. Just trust me on that. You do have to do some more writing, but it won't be that big a deal. You have written a draft, you have done peer review, and now you are going through the final stages of the process. That is REP, revise, edit, and proofread. You might recall talking about this early in the semester. You might recall me telling you to please do it in that order. You revise first. That takes care of the ultimate, like the overall focus of the paper, the overall argument, the focus of the sections, the paragraphs, that kind of thing. Then we get into the editing, which deals with the sentences, and then finally the proofreading, which is like words, punctuation, that kind of thing. You're always going from biggest to smallest. Revise, edit, and then proofread. So as far as revisions go, you want to make sure that your paper has a clear purpose and point, that there is something specific that you want readers to see or understand about your in-group experience. Beyond that, you want to make sure that each section of the paper also has its own purpose and point, that it's designed to add something specific to the overall argument or to the overall purpose of the paper. Beyond that, as we get into each one of those sections, you'll want to make sure that you have evidence from your personal experience as well as from the outside research. Every main point in the paper, that is every big section of your paper, needs to have evidence from both places. Obviously, the evidence from your personal narrative or personal experience will be the bulk of the evidence, but that does need to be complemented with evidence from your outside sources that helps to give explanation and context for that. In some cases, that's going to explain what you're doing. Other cases, it may be explaining why. In other cases, still, it may be linking that to expected behaviors or expected attitudes of other folks in your in-group or of an in-group like yours. There's a lot of ways to get that outside research in there. And you can also argue against your outside research. The researchers say X will happen, but if your experience differs from that, well, that's interesting, right? So just make sure that comes out in your paper. As always, you want to make sure your evidence is fully developed. For the personal experience, you need to have concrete, specific details, concrete, specific language, so that readers can see what was going on. Make sure you're emphasizing the details that are most relevant to what you want someone to see or understand about that aspect of your in-group experience. And the same thing is true, though I guess to a lesser extent, for the outside research. Don't just throw a random sentence in there from a researcher. Use the three-part process: introduce, describe, and explain, so that you can work that piece of information into the flow of your discussion, give a few details so readers see what it is, right? And then explain it so that readers understand the significance of it. Introduce, describe, and explain. If you go through that three-part process, that will help to ensure that your evidence is fully developed. Then we finally, after we finish with revision, we can get down to editing, making sure that the flow is good, making sure that the sentences are correct. I think this is also a good place to make sure that your evidence is documented. Obviously, you're not going to need to document your personal examples, but the outside research does need to be documented. You want to be using APA format for that. Get your author's name into the flow of the discussion. And when you give the author's name, be sure to give the year as well. That's something you do in APA, and you might want to take a second look at your chapter because of that. So get the author's name in there, make sure it's documented, and obviously develop too. Make sure that your sentences flow well, make sure that there's nothing repetitive, nothing redundant, Make sure that there's no sudden jumps from one idea to the next or one example to the next. And then finally, you get down to the proofreading, making sure that everything is spelled correctly, punctuated correctly, that your sentences are grammatically correct, so forth and so on. Obviously, your word processing program will help you with that quite a bit, but you can also read it yourself. That's also another thing that a peer can be very helpful with. You could link up with somebody else in your section and kind of trade papers, and get each other to edit each other's papers. Though when I say that, you are not actually supposed to edit someone else's paper. You can look it over and look for problems that need to be addressed, but the author himself or herself should address the problems. In other words, the author should be the only one that edits his or her paper. You can just make suggestions, right? Everybody is going to write his or her own paper. So revise, edit, and proofread. You have several days to work through that. You can also, just as another kind of revision tool, you can make what's known as a reverse outline. Typically we use outlines as planning tools, but you could make an outline of what your paper actually says, and again, this is something a peer can do as well, so that you have somebody else identifying main points and evidence and that kind of thing, and hopefully that jives with what your plan was. That can actually tell you a lot about the paper. I think that's going to be all for me for today. As always, if I can help you with your paper, you're please going to let me know that. You can email me, you can check in at the Zoom office hours on Tuesday and Thursday afternoon from 12 to 2, or you can obviously post questions to the Research Project Forum on our Moodle page. Good luck with everything, everybody. Bye.